If I may just read an excerpt from the Bible real quick. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on its horns were 10 diadems, and on its heads were blasphemous names. And the dragon gave it his power, and his throne, and great authority. They worshipped the dragon, for he had given authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it? Revelations chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. Well, doesn't that sound like a jolly good time? Monster, the most underrated anime of all time, and you can quote me on that, is a 2004 to 2005 mystery and psychological thriller anime written by Tatsuhiko Uruhata and directed by Masayuki Kojima. It is also based on the manga of the same name written by Naomi Urasa. Okay, before I tell you the long and complicated premise, I'm about to spoil the first, 8 episodes or so heavily. So if you don't care to hear the premise and you don't want to be spoiled for those first 8 episodes, you can just skip to this time span here. But if you're still with me, here's the premise of Monster. The anime takes place in 1986 in West Germany and centers around Dr. Kenzo Tenma, who is a brilliant young Japanese brain surgeon. Tenma is dissatisfied with the political bias of the hospital he works at in treating patients and seizes the chance to change things after a massacre brings fraternal twins Johann and Anna Liebert into the hospital. Johann has a gunshot wound to his head and Anna mutters about killing. Tenma operates on Johann instead of the mayor, who arrived later. Johann is saved, but the mayor dies, and because of that, Tenma loses his social standing and his fiancée, the daughter of the hospital director, calls off the wedding. While visiting Johann, who is seemingly in a coma, Tenma states that all lives are equal, and that he's not wrong, and that all who think differently should just die. And wouldn't you know it, all who oppose Tenma are mysteriously murdered and both children disappear from the hospital. 9 years later, 4 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Tenma has become chief of surgery. After saving a criminal named Adolf Junkers, Junkers murders about a monster. When visiting Junkers one night, he finds the guard station dead and Junkers gone. When Tenma locates him, he discovers Junkers held at gunpoint. And the man holding the gun? Why, it's Johann Liebert, the same person that Tenma saved over the mayor all those years ago. And right in front of Tenma, Johann shoots Junkers, telling Tenma that he can never kill a man who saved his life, and walks into the darkness. Tenma is suspected by the police, particularly by Inspector Lunge, who is the best character in the anime, by the way, and Tenma tries to find more information about Johann. He soon discovers that the boy's sister is living happily as an adoptive daughter, going by the name Nina now with no memories of her time as Anna. As Tenma tries to protect Nina from Johann, Nina's foster parents are murdered. Tenma learns the scope of the atrocities committed by this monster and vows to fix the mistake that he made by saving Johann's life. Okay, that right there, that is a genius setup. I first watched over 74 episodes based on that premise alone, and I was glad that my anticipation and excitement was not let down. While some of it has to do with the original manga storytelling and writing, among many other things, the anime also helps to enhance the overall experience, so let's talk about it. First off, I gotta give it to the anime. It is a damn good adaptation of the original manga. Helped that the manga ended in 2001 while the anime started in 2004, meaning that the anime can greatly foreshadow future events early on, making all 74 episodes feel like a complete picture. The only subtle differences between the manga and the anime include short snippets of additional dialogue and slight reordering of scenes and places. I think one of the only other perfect manga to anime adaptations that I've seen like this is Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which we may or may not see in a future top 10 video. While the animation is simple and typical Madhouse animation, the way they make the manga panels come to life is really extraordinary. All done through great cinematography and effective editing. In every episode, all the scenes come together to create a tense experience, helped at times through heavy shadows and dark settings. The animation can help the bright moments feel joyful and the dark moments feel full of dread and sorrow. Added on to that, the music is also effective in its own right. In some quiet and tense scenes, you honestly don't hear the music at all. Then it creeps up on you slowly until it hits you with thunderous noise. The music really helps to take you out of your comfort zone, and the anime is all the more beneficial because of it. Monster also contains some of the deepest and most complex characters that you'll ever find in anime. So deep and complex that I could see someone making a 10-page paper just on studying one of the characters psychologically. They each have their own problems, whether or not they involve with the overall plot, and that motivates them on their journeys that are ever changing throughout the anime.
All of our major characters have satisfying and complete character arcs, changing from beginning to end while keeping in line with the anime's main themes. My two personal favorite characters were Lunge and Grimmer. Grimmer is a great addition to the cast halfway through the runtime. I love his upbeat and positive personality, but at the same time, there was a terrifying persona laying deep inside him, created by his unknown childhood and a terrifying alter ego that may exist underneath his smiling face. Lunge, on the other hand, is the best character, hands down. He is cold, calculating, and the greatest inspector of all time. He is a workaholic, and in many moments, he kind of acts like a monster. Not as much of the monster as Johan, who I'll get to soon, but his emotionless attitude towards his wife and daughter and his unnerving drive to capture Tenma makes him a character that brings us so many stressful moments, and his character development throughout the 74 episodes is the best in the show.
But yeah, let's get to talking about the main antagonist, Johan, and why he is hands down the greatest villain in all of anime. And that's because he exhibits three important qualities while on screen. He's terrifying, he's endearing, and he's fascinating. So let's talk about all those three qualities.
First, fuck yes, Johan is terrifying, and he doesn't really need much to do that. But his subtle facial expressions and the way he can dig right through your shield and take out your biggest weaknesses is really scary. It's known that the most haunting moment of Johan's destruction isn't all the murders he orchestrated and the massacres that he ignites, but when he tries to get an ex-alcoholic detective off his back. He meets him at his highest point while proceeding to break him down piece by piece right before offering him one last drink.
Well, Richard, how about a drink?
While Johan will usually hire people to kill off others, if he can, he'll use his intelligence to mentally break someone on his own.
You can fight a monster using your fists if you're strong enough. But if the monster can bring out your darkest secrets, then what can you do against it?
Second quality, Johan is endearing. And when I say that, I mean that he's a very charismatic man. When Johan puts on the act, he becomes very charming and no one can see the monster hiding inside him. Children flock around him and want to play games with him, and Johan will teach them a very special game, like walking on the edges of a roof. Be sure not to fall. Politicians are eager to become friendly with him and do him favors, and Johan will take advantage of that to make it part of his overall scheme. And finally, women will fall head over heels for him. Johan has no interest in something as frivolous as romance and love. How can a monster like him feel something like love anyway?
You can find the monster if he presents himself. But what can you do against it when he's too charming and endearing to ever be seen as a monster?
And the last quality I want to talk about with Johan is that he's fascinating. I talked about how Monster contains some of the deepest and most complex characters you ever find in anime. Well, it just so happens that Johan is the deepest and the most complex character in the entire anime. And that's because every part of him is fascinating. His state of mind, his plans and reasons for killing, and especially his backstory of his twin sister are extremely fascinating. Some say that, much like with complex villains like the Joker, part of the fear from the character comes from not knowing where he came from and how he became the psychotic killer that he is today. And while I tend to agree with that, if done correctly and smartly, revealing more about your mysterious villain can actually make him more scary. It helps that all of Monster's characters feel real, even Johan. Because of that, and the story and character writing being so tight, you want to know more and more about him. And let's just say that the more we learn of Johan, the greater of a villain that he becomes.
After all, you can defeat the monster if he's just a faceless being. What if the monster is just as complicated and real as any other human on this earth? In the end, Johan is perhaps the greatest villain in all of anime due to him being terrifying, endearing, and fascinating. Whenever he appears on screen, a chill will go down your spine and you'll know that no one is safe anymore. Speaking of, the mysteries presented in Monster are intriguing. Not only about how Johan became the monster that he is today and how it connects to Nina, but also the other characters connected to this big conspiracy.
While trying to track down and investigate Johan, Tenma comes across so many secrets of Germany and Eastern Europe, and how a war as massive as World War II can affect so many things. And while some people in Germany want to forget about this war, others want to see Germany return to its former glory, and use any means to create the being that will lead them to this glory. But mysteries are nothing if they don't have satisfying answers, and the answers to the question that arise from the different mysteries are always exciting to learn about. Plus, one could figure out the answers long before they are revealed in later episodes, and that's all thanks to excellent foreshadowing and visual storytelling. You have to think to truly understand this anime, and it'll be a much more enjoyable experience if you pay attention to Monster's fascinating tale.
Another thing I like about Monster is its time period and setting. It takes place in the later 20th century, 4 years after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, and the setting is Germany and some of Eastern Europe. You don't see a setting like this in most of anime. It helps to bring out the themes more because of its real-world events that it uses as influence. Not only does it use the fall of the Berlin Wall, but also Germany's failure after World War II and the Czechoslovakian secret police. Now, what are those themes, you may ask? Now, while lots of different themes and ideas are floated around throughout Monster's 74 episodes, the main two themes is that of humanity and our main protagonist's main philosophy, that all people are born equal.
The philosophy is what drives Tenma to save Johann in the first place instead of the mayor who came in later. And because this results in Johann living and killing God knows how many people, Tenma's philosophy is tested. He used to believe that everyone should be saved, but how can he believe that when he's resigned to fix his mistake and kill Johann? So the entire anime not only follows Tenma in his quest, but trying to see if all people are born equal and should be treated as such. We are all human beings after all, right? So we should treat bad people as humans too, right? But what if one like Johann does so many horrific and unspeakable things that he can't be seen as a human anymore, but as a monster?
And the main question that Monster challenges its audience to try and answer is, who is the true evil in the world? The monster, or the one who created the monster? These types of questions can be found in things ranging from other anime to even Disney movies.
Johann is the initial monster that you think of at the beginning of the anime, and while he still is from beginning to end, you discover that even greater monsters are to be found. After all, a monster can be terrifying, but isn't someone who created that monstrous person even more of a monster? Johann's psychotic nature had to come from someone or something, right? A certain set of circumstances had to happen to make Johann into the monster that he is today. People had to influence him, create him, mold him into his present self. And those people are even more monstrous in causing the creation of the biggest monster that anyone has ever seen.
And the last positive thing that I want to talk about in Monster is its great freaking dub. I'm a dub lover through and through, so I'll stick with any dub of an anime even if it's mostly terrible. So I love it when I find an excellent dub in an anime. And Monster's dub is a gem because of its excellent voice cast.
Liam O'Brien captures Tenma's innocence that turns into madness. Karen Strassman is great as Nina, someone who is struggling with mental orders that might kill her in the end. Richard Epcar perfectly captures Lungate's cold and calculating nature. Other highlights include Cam Clark as Richard, Doug Olhortz as Otto Heckel, and Yuri Lowenthal as Carl. But the greatest performance in Monster's dub is Keith Silverstein as the monster himself. I don't know how he does it, but Keith manages to portray Johann as absolutely terrifying just for his voice alone. Those deep whispers combined with that emotionless face fits together perfectly.
I woke up from the dream.
Are you tired or something, Johann? What are you gonna do about the plan?
I said I woke up.
Hold on a minute. If you've changed your mind, what did I collect all that money for anyway, huh?
I woke up from the dream.
So tell me then, what did I kill all those people for?
There were so many visions I had of the end. But now, I'm picturing a different ending altogether. A clearer vision of the true ending.
Huh?
It's from a memory only I have. The real place where I must be.
I recommend the dub just on Keith's performance alone.
Okay, let's get into Monster's negatives, because despite the 74 episodes being an almost flawless experience, it does have some visible wrinkles. And one is that, while I praise the anime as a perfect adaptation of the original manga, it's perfect to a fault for various reasons.
Sometimes the pacing of the anime can be as slow as fucking molasses at times. No, don't get me wrong. Most of the anime is a suspenseful and edge of your seat experience, but there's always like 2 to 3 episodes in between these moments that just stretch the anime's episode count. These episodes introduce one-off characters and stories that ultimately feel unnecessary to the overall storyline and character developments. This is especially a glaring problem on repeat viewings where you know these episodes and characters are going to serve no overarching point in the overall story and you just want to get to the good shit. I think the anime should have trimmed down some of these episodes and plot lines so that the pacing of the show could feel more fluid and not have repeat instances of a slow as molasses pacing.
Also, on a personal note, I'm honestly not a fan of the final shot of the anime. Which is funny because the scene that precedes it is actually my favorite scene in the entire freaking anime. helping to recontextualize the entire show that you just finished watching in a brand new way that ultimately changes how you view some characters on a second viewing. That final shot, man, I don't know, I'm just not a fan of it. I know what it's implying and how it finishes up an important character storyline, but I just don't like what it implies for the future of our characters. I really can't explain it without spoiling the conclusion of the anime, and it doesn't ruin it for me, but the final shot is a bit iffy in my opinion. But those small wrinkles in no way take away how much of a thrilling experience watching Monster truly is. It truly is an underrated anime that not enough people are talking about. It's a classic due to its simple but effective animation, its deep and complex characters that feel so real, one of, if not the best villains in all of anime, its intriguing and fascinating mysteries, its unique setting and time, its themes of humanity, and a truly excellent dub. Monster was my number 10 favorite anime until about 3 years ago when another anime took that spot. But I still love it so much that I had to still talk about it as an honorable mention. I'm going to be giving Monster both a personal and a critical score of an A-. It truly is a one-of-a-kind anime that more and more people need to see. Unfortunately, the only way to watch it is illegally, so what can you do? Tune in next time for my actual top 10 favorite anime list to truly begin. Time to rock and roll.